No. Okay.
So what do you want to talk to me for, Tom?
Well, you know, we talk with musicians, and anytime we get the opportunity to talk with musicians that have had success or have been doing this for a while, you know, it's always a great opportunity. And so I had originally reached out to Linda there,
Yeah.
um, when my dad was getting ready to retire because I was working on a like a retirement video type thing for him, and I wanted to get something from you to say like congratulations on 30 years, you know, like whatever it was at the time. But then as I was in the process of setting all that up, he was forced to retire early, and we didn't know if he was going to be able to come back in time to, so
Okay.
everything kind of fell by the wayside.
But he's okay now.
Yep, everything's good now. He's healthy, he's happy, he's down in Florida living it up, you know.
That's life. That's what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so he ended up retiring in June of last year as a pilot. Um, and now he's just kind of doing the tail end of his treatments and he's back teaching actually. So,
Teaching flying.
yep, teaching flying.
Good for,
Uh,
good for
he
him.
works he works for like one of the airplane manufacturers teaching various different students and what have you. So that's exciting that he didn't just get thrown by the wayside.
Well, no, I think it's important, especially pilots that have experience, and you know they can teach some of the up and coming pilots a whole bunch of stuff. Linda flies; she's got 80 or 90 hours. I have 8.5 hours flying.
Oh, wow.
Then I got busy again. I stayed sober for a couple of weeks, and we were back on the road. I
Yeah.
did it so I could get used to. I was traveling every day, and it just was like kind of getting me down. So my road manager, my sound engineer said, who was also a pilot, he said, "Well, take some flying lessons, Roger, and then you know planes are meant to fly." And I did, and I was fine. I took about 8.5 hours, about 3 or 4 lessons, 4 or 5 actually. It
Oh,
was
wow.
fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's I think that was always one of my dad's dreams was to have me learn how to fly,
Yeah.
but it was just something that I never took to, I guess, as a career opportunity.
Yeah. Linda loves it. She hasn't flown in a while, but she went up a few years back. She also skydives. She jumps out of planes with a parachute, and she loves doing that. So I just go along and watch her when she's doing that, and I have a beer and a bag of French fries. And I try to see which little dot is Linda up in the air.
Yeah.
I think that's Linda. Is that the pink, blue, and green one? No, that's not Linda. But they're just dots until they get to about 3,000 feet. Then they go under canopy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you know, it's flying's fun. Like I definitely enjoy going and taking trips in airplanes, but like other than that, it's I really have no aspirations of,
Well,
you know.
I up until our last date was March 13th in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
And this is the first time I don't even remember that I've had April, May, June, and July off. So I'm having a grand time. I've got a vegetable garden I'm taking care of from beginning to end. I fish out the back door. I go out in my boat. My wife and I are really good friends because we get on really well, and it's fine. It's sort of like a second honeymoon, actually.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. You know, it's just a weird time that we're in. You know, it's like I don't even know where to begin on that one.
No,
Uh,
it is. It's like it's something I've never experienced, and I can understand. You know, like what it's my my two youngest daughters. You know, work here in the office where they have their own office just out. So we live in a real small house,
mhm.
and that, you know, I haven't been able to hug them since, because they live with their mother, but they come and work here 4 days a week and 3 days a week, and they haven't been here since then. We had a meeting in the garden about 2 weeks ago, and they were socially distanced. It was pretty weird not being able to hug your children.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing I miss, not being able to sort of get close to them, because my middle daughter's really having a hard time with it. She's kind of, in fact, I had a really good lengthy conversation with her yesterday afternoon for about an hour and a half, trying to sort of help her, you know, get through it, because she's freaking out. Her business is like getting strange. She can't earn any real money. And I said to her, well, there's always a sandwich and a bed at your daddy's home. And she said, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange.
When my family came down, because since they live in Florida and I live in Texas now, you know, it was just one of those things where it's like, we're going to kind of pretend that everything's kind of normal right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when I'm going to see you next.
Right.
You know, it could be Christmas. It could be a year from now. You know, just the way everything's going right now, you never know.
And it's double. It's absolutely horrendous what's going on out there. But the looting is just a shame, because it's distracting from the real problems that this country has.
Yep.
You know, I'm just bewildered why so many people are doing it, and the way they're doing it, and shooting cops. It's like turning cops' cars up. It's like that really, really bothers me. You know, that's not how we're supposed to be.
No, it's not. It really isn't. But so we're just going to kind of roll into this. Usually what I'll do is I'll do like an intro, and then I'll introduce you. And then we'll start talking about music, your music, you know, all the fun stuff. And then we'll just kind of see where it goes. I don't want to keep you too long, because I know it's a little bit later out by you, the time difference and what have you. So we'll try and
I'm a rock and roller. I don't go to bed much before midnight.
I got you. You know, well, I try and keep that in my mindset, but you know, with me and my job, it's like, all right, I have to make sure I'm in bed by midnight, because I have to be like semi-functional by 8 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
So it's, you know, maybe one day I won't have the 9 to 5 job, and I'll just kind of be able
what is that you do?
Right now I work for an ABC affiliate.
Okay.
I do like promotions and commercials, and so like all the local TV commercials and stuff.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's fun. What's really interesting is right now I've been doing a lot of the like special graphic requests. So like, because a lot of the information that the newscast is getting, they don't have a way to like demonstrate it or show it.
Okay.
So they come to me, they give me all this information, and I have to figure out a way to present it in an interesting fashion.
All right. I was my first real job was I left school when I was 15. I was a commercial artist, you know, graphic artist.
Yeah.
I did industrial design, packaging design, stuff like that. That was work. I was good at it, but all I wanted to do was play the drum.
Yeah.
But I had to pay for those cymbals and drums. They weren't cheap.
No. I'd imagine it's a lot like the camera equipment that I have to have. You know, it's just not a cheap hobby. Our sound engineer for Live and Amplified is actually a drummer, and
A real friend.
yeah, he just recently got back into it because he played drums originally, and then he started playing bass, and then he had injured himself, and he had to go back to playing drums, and so he had just recently started piecing together a kit. And I went over there a couple of weeks ago, and I saw his kit, and it's like, oh, we need to get you like a complete kit, not just like this pieced together hodgepodge thing, you know.
There was a joke about that I read somewhere on Facebook about drummers just be careful, because after all this time, when they come back to join the band, they may have learned to sing and play guitar. Ah!
Yeah. But what originally got you interested in music?
Well, the truth is, I my both my parents, my mother and my father, were musically inclined. Mum could sing. Dad sang and played the piano. He actually played in a band um, prior to World War II, which I didn't find out about until after his death. My aunt told me about it. But there was always a piano in the house, which was actually my mother's piano. But Dad was the piano player, and he sang also. We always had the radio. We always had a TV, a big TV. We had a TV with a big screen, projection TV. We had the only one on our block, and there was a record player, and we added speakers as we went along. There was always music. There was always music around. My father took me to my first Jerry Lee Lewis concert when I was about 13, maybe 14, in Southwest London. So yeah, I had great parents. We weren't sort of wealthy or anything. Dad worked 7 days a week, but I had good parents. They always supported me and my brothers in whatever our endeavors were. I was the youngest, so they had to sort of tolerate me more.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So for the one person that's listening that doesn't know, I'm talking to Roger Earl of Foghat. You're currently based out of in New York State. You're not in New York City, correct?
No, I'm out on Long Island on the North Shore,
Okay.
East Setauket, Port Jefferson area. It's a beautiful place to live. I've been quarantined here since March 13th, which was our last date. Then we played in Las Vegas at the Golden Nugget.
Hmm.
I came back. My brother-in-law picked me up. I've stopped off at the store, got some stuff that we needed, and basically, other than filling the car up once, I've been quarantined with my wife.
Nice. You know, but I think it's very important to kind of emphasize you guys are still actively touring as a band, like pretty
Yeah.
regularly.
Oh yeah, no, we do between 60, 70 shows a year.
Mhm.
In fact, this is the first time that I've ever had like April, May, June, possibly July off. At the moment, I think our first date is probably going to be August 1st, but we're going to wait and see. Most of our dates, we didn't cancel. We just put them on for later on in the year
Yeah,
to see what's going to happen with the virus. But
yeah,
I think maybe August 1st will be our first date. We'll see how it goes in the next, because I don't want to put my crew and the rest of the band in
yeah,
any kind of danger. Otherwise they're not going to be able to rock and roll at all.
yeah, absolutely.
It has been weird.
Yeah, because when I was originally talking to your wife there, I went to your Facebook page to kind of see what shows you had coming up, and I saw you guys were supposed to be in Santa Fe. I think it was in July, which isn't too far from me. And then your wife told me that you guys are actually supposed to be in Waco at some point. I think maybe.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do those dates. They moved them all to a different time.
Yeah,
The date that we have ostensibly we're going to start with is August 1st.
yeah,
I don't have my book with me,
yeah,
so it's somewhere in
yeah,
America.
yeah. But so hopefully the hope is August 1st, you guys will get kind of rocking and rolling again and back out on the road and kind of salvage
No,
the
no,
rest.
yeah. Well, actually, we've been on. Everybody's on forced vacation.
Yeah.
Everybody in the band's okay. The crew are all doing good. Like I said, this is the first time I've had, April, May, June, July off. I don't even remember. I'm going
Mhm.
fishing. I've got the garden done.
Yeah.
I'm mowing the lawn. I'm fixing. I've got a honeydew list this long.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, is the rest of the band also based out of New York, or are they kind of scattered all over?
They're scattered. The band actually lives in Florida.
Okay.
Charlie, our lead singer and lead guitar player, lives in Orlando. Brian, our lead and slide player, and our producer and chief engineer, we'd be lost without him. Brian Bassett lives in New Smyrna Beach.
Okay.
And Rodney O'Quinn lives a little bit further down the road in Melbourne.
Okay.
We also have a band house where we record and rehearse. In fact, we'll be going down there a week before the first date to learn our craft again.
Yeah. Have you guys been trying to practice through using like Zoom or anything, or what are you kind of doing right now to challenge yourself musically now that you have a little bit more time on your hand?
I practice every day. I
Okay.
have a practice. I live in a very small house, a houseboat, in fact.
Yeah.
I have a practice kit up there upstairs with just pads, and I have my real drum kit. I have a separate house out on the property that's been soundproofed, and I keep my drum kit in there, and it's set up. Actually, I've been working with some really interesting stuff. I'm learning some different stuff on the drums. I practice every day for an hour or 2 hours, and sometimes less, sometimes more if I get into something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got some stuff that it's interesting. I'm kind of relearning some stuff. The thing is with playing drums, it's I mean, I know how to play, but there are mechanics of actually playing. Your hands, your feet, head, hands, and feet. They've all got a function. But you also have to. It's like not exactly an athlete, but you have to be able to function physically. Well, playing in a rock and roll band, if you're playing with brushes and going, I could do that all night long.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's awesome that you're like, I mean, I think back in the day when I was first like getting and learning different aspects of the music business, in the back of my head I thought there came a point where musicians just didn't need to practice anymore, and then it didn't take me very long to learn that that's not the case. Good musicians are always practicing, always learning.
You know what? The thing is, you get that out when you're out on the road. You have an hour and a half to get it right. The rest of the time is hurry up and wait. It's like hotels, planes, trains, automobiles. But that hour and a half before you get to go on stage, that's what it's all about. And like when you get up there, you want to be able to do it right, for your own personal satisfaction. And it's the same with all the other guys in the band. They're all really great musicians and they all care.
Yeah.
Nobody drinks or does drugs before they play. Over the years, I have played with a couple of hangovers.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's serious. We take it serious. This is what we love. The reason musicians are the way they are is because they want to learn to play. They have a passion for music. And, I'm fortunate. I've always played in great bands with great musicians right from the beginning when I first started playing. And that stays with me. I take pride in what I do. I'm one of those fortunate individuals who gets to earn a decent living at something I really enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really refreshing to hear that there are still a lot of musicians out there that take it seriously and they want to be mentally straight before they go out and play and while they're playing. Because I've definitely been to a lot of shows, not nearly as much as you, but I've been to a lot of shows where I'll see the one guy is just messed up on something, whether it's alcohol, whether it's heroin, whether it's, whatever it is, just like some very serious stuff. And it just ruins the entire set because.
It's that's unfortunate. In fact, we have a rule in the band. That's it. You don't do anything before. And maybe if it's like 90 degrees out, having a couple of sips of beer before you hit the stage or whatever, that's not illegal. But getting inebriated, nobody does that. Yeah. Afterwards, look out.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because you just had a great set or a great show, and sometimes some people or depending on the musician, the alcohol helps bring them down, or just like whatever it is. But after it's like anybody that likes to go out and work. Yep. So I take it you're a wine drinker then? That's your drink of choice?
I drink, therefore I am. Yeah, always has been. It's probably my favorite drink. And we have our own wine brand, which is really cool. I have a cellar that's going to last me a lifetime unless I live to 110, which I doubt. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. We got into the wine business a few years back, 1995, I think. It was the first, somewhere around there. And we met a winemaker out when we were out in California, Steve Rasmussen, and he said he came to see us. He was a fan of Foghat's music, and he emailed my wife and our manager and said, "Would you be interested in making a wine?" So I started giggling and said, "Yes, please." So we went out and met him and talked about it. Our first one was a Cabernet Sauvignon, and then we had 90 cases of that. That's all. I've got 2 cases left. Then we had a 2007, 2008, and then a 2010. And then we started the 2010s we actually produced ourselves. I picked the grapes and punched them down, bottled them, and all that stuff. So that was interesting. Yeah, well, a fascinating thing about winemaking. I didn't really know much about it before, other than what I liked and what I didn't like. But the people who actually work at the farms and and actually pick the grapes and stuff, the farmers, like, I mean, these people work.
Yeah.
This is not like what does this grape taste like? No, it's not that. They work, and the same with the winemakers themselves. They work very hard. And they walk down the vines to sort of see how they are. Over the years, some famous people have sort of got involved in wine. Jesus liked wine too.
Yeah.
Don't go there. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll have to definitely get my dad some of your wine, because he's the wine drinker in the family. It's never been something that I guess I just never really had the palate for it, or my palate's not sophisticated enough for wine.
It's an acquired taste. How is your dad, by the way?
My dad's doing really well. He's healthy. He's prostate cancer free. So he's on the tail end of some hormone replacement therapy. So everything's good. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, the cancer. There probably isn't a family or in the land that hasn't been touched one way of it. I'm glad he's doing good.
Yeah.
Let's tell the story when we met him.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, actually, let's tell it here in a minute, because I kind of want to get some backstory on the band and stuff of that nature. So
okay, you're in charge.
So how did the band Foghat kind of come together?
Myself and the lead guitar player, the lead singer rather, Lonesome Dave Peverett, and the bass player Tony Stevens was in a band called Savoy Brown in the 60s, which I joined in 68, and we left at the end of 1970. And we formed Foghat in 71. It took us a while to sort of get things organized. Our previous manager of Savoy Brown actually tried to stop us from actually playing. He wouldn't let the agency in. Well, we lived in England at the time. Wouldn't let us play. In fact, I went to see them and talked to them, and they said, we can't book you because Harry Simmons, who was the manager of Savoy Brown, threatened to take away Savoy Brown and Chicken Shack from the agency if they booked us, and they were probably two of the biggest acts in England at the time. Yeah, he was a real scumbag. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's all good. There's no rules on this podcast. You can say pretty much whatever you want.
But I've remained really good friends over the years with Kim Simmons, the lead guitar player in Savoy Brown. In fact, he played on our last studio album, and we do a number of days together. So there was never any aggro or animosity there. I mean, I love Kim, and he's a great musician as well. In fact, gave me my first real job. So, in fact, I think our first date on August 1st is with Savoy Brown. So that'll be fun. We'll get out and jam together.
Nice.
That's sort of it in a nutshell. I came to the States in late 68, I think winter of 68. And for me, it was like coming home. I grew up listening to American music. My father, when he was in the army, he met a lot of GIs over in England, and they would bring over their jazz records and stuff like that, and big band music. And that sort of started that. And America is the land of music. Country, blues, rock and roll, jazz, gospel. I'm not leaving anything out, am I? Probably. This is where it comes from.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up, because we talked to several musicians, and we're actually really starting to pick up a lot of steam over in the UK. London specifically, like we're getting a lot of musicians over in the UK to come on the podcast, and we're really starting to build our following out there. And so I'll talk to them and I'll ask them like what their big aspiration is. And 9 times out of 10, it's, well, we want to come to America and succeed, be a success in the music industry. But I'll talk to a lot of like rock bands in the US, and 9 times out of 10, it's, we want to go over to the UK and have success over in the UK.
But the UK is also Europe, which, Germany, France, Italy, Spain. I mean, they all sort of listen to, they talk a little funny over there, but they're all into music. And then most of them actually sing in English or with an American accent. Some may have noticed that. But that's what we grew up listening to.
Yeah.
Elvis Presley, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis. For me, anyway, Chuck Berry. There would be no rock and roll if it wasn't for Chuck Berry.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up Little Richard. It's like, well, rest in peace to him, because he just passed away here recently. And just so many of these iconic musicians right now that have transcended time and just cross-pollinated from country to country. Like, they started off as an American act, but they found success over in the US or over in the UK, Australia, wherever else in the world. And it's just crazy. Like, just perspective, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
What was really interesting was back in the early, mid, and late 60s, a number of American blues artists were coming over to the States. Well, Ray Charles, of course, but Sonny Boy Williamson, Muddy Waters. I went to see them, and they were treated like kings when they came to Europe. Certainly when they came to England, and they couldn't quite figure it. I talked to Muddy before he passed away about that, and John Lee Hooker. The fans in England just took to them. They embraced them wholeheartedly, whereas like in their home, back here in the States, they were hardly known. So felt good about that, because that's where I got my influence from, and a lot of rock and rollers were the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So that we'll kind of transition into the story you were alluding to earlier. So the band started in right around 71, and then right around 74 is when inadvertently you met my father, and I have the reason right here. I found it at a thrift shop in northern Florida.
It's worth thousands. Maybe about $3 now if it's in good order.
Actually, that's about what I paid for. It was $3. My dad actually flew the airplane that's on that album to I guess it would be the airport or the set or wherever it was at.
The Mohave Desert, actually.
Yeah.
If you was into the desert, into the Mohave, and there was like a graveyard of planes there.
Yeah.
Did he tell you about that?
The story always was he never went into like grave detail about it. It was always this band Foghat, My Airplane, is in their album cover, or is on their album cover. You know, and that's always what the story was.
We were
And
we were fairly well behaved, so he might
yeah,
remember us fondly.
yeah. I
Fairly
mean,
well behaved.
yeah. And I mean, at that point, my dad was probably about 20, 21 years old. So I'm sure, you know, it was either way, it would have been a great memory of his.
So he
And
was young. He was younger than us then.
yeah,
We were like 27, 28, somewhere around there, I think.
yeah, yeah. You
So we
know,
had
and
flying our Learjet.
yeah, yeah. You know, he's been flying since, I think he said, ever since he was like 16 or 17. So, you know, because I was sitting here trying to do the math beforehand. I was like, wait a minute, he would only been like 20. How does this math work? And I was like, oh, wait, he started flying when he was like 15 or 16. So, yeah, I guess that math does work, you know?
You know, I think pilots and flying, they're not unlike musicians. They have a passion for it. I mean, that's what they want to do. It's like that's the only thing that it's flying and everything to do with flying, and
Mm-hmm.
they absorb everything. I read a fantastic book about the original the Wright brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and that is absolutely fascinating because, I mean, literally just over 100 years ago, you know, we weren't flying. Within 100 years, look at us. We're going to the moon, sending people off to Mars, and like we fly all over the place in jets.
Mm-hmm.
Jets only came about after, well, initially they were, I guess, during World War II, towards the end, that was when they sort of started working on it, but they weren't finalized for a number of years. It wasn't until like the 60s they really got good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that, you know, and I think that's what kept him is his passion for flying. You know, he like his stories all he's has so many stories that they tend to start to run together about the different things he's
I'm
experienced in
that.
his life. Yep. You know, like, but the one that's always remained consistent was the flying the plane out to your guys' album shoot at it, you know, it's so it's like yeah, which is really cool.
It was, and I think we actually stuck the Foghat
Logo.
logo on
Post.
the front of the plane with some tape.
Yep. Yep. But you know, and you know, it's just like it's a simple album cover, but it's really cool. Like you know, for people that don't know, this is the Rock and Roll Outlaws album cover, which is like what, an EP, I believe. There's only like five
No,
songs in?
there's.
Or no, it's a full LP.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't mess around, and we made a whole bunch of stuff. Often we would have to cut a couple of tracks off because we'd record too many.
Yeah.
Young and passionate about what we're doing. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But then shortly after you obviously Foghat is really well known for Slow Ride. Like that for me, that's one of the songs that really resonates, and it's like in my opinion, oh, I mean not in my opinion, but like it's a really good song, and you know it's probably one of
It's a classic.
yes, there you go. That's the song I'm looking for. It's a classic. That's the wording I'm looking for. What's kind of what was the story behind the creation of that song, and when you said like what's the story behind it?
Actually, it came from the Fall for the City album, and which I think was our fifth album. And we decided that this is a Fall for the City album. We decided that we needed to take some time off and get serious. Most of the other albums, other than our first album, we would work in some studio for 2 or 3 weeks or a month, and then we go on the road again and come back and do stuff. And we fired our bass player, Tony Stevens. He was always either leaving or getting fired from somewhere. That's another story, though.
Yeah.
Nick Jameson joined us, who'd produced a couple of records for us prior to that. And he and I were good friends. I lived up in Woodstock at the time, which is where Bearsville is, our record company.
Yeah.
And I said to Nick, "You want to play bass?" And he said, "Yeah. How hard can it be?" No, that was somebody else who said that. But it was never hard for him. So we rented a bass for him, drove down. Rob Price and I, our original lead and slide guitar player, owned a house down here. We soundproofed the basement, and we had to be careful because there was a policeman who lived next door.
Oh, yeah.
He used to get Rod all upset. I said, "You should be happy there's a cop living next door. No problem." I like having cops living next door. In fact, two of my stepsons are ex-cops, so that I understand that.
Yeah.
And it was, we rented a studio in Sharon, Vermont. It was on top of a mountain. Nick Jameson and I had toured about half a dozen different studios. We wanted to find somewhere where we weren't going to have any distractions, because at that time and the sort of way we were easily distracted. What's that? No. And Slow Ride's about, I guess, sort of, it's about, you know, doing it slowly. It's all about sex. Most of rock and roll songs are about sex. Either I've done it, I'd like to do it again, I'm thinking about it, and hello, what's your name?
Yeah.
So, and actually, the interesting thing about recording it, and I'd forgotten it, but Nick Jameson reminded me about. Nick Jameson came down and worked on our last studio album, Under the Influence, and he told me a story about, which I'd forgotten about, when we were actually recording Slow Ride. The power went out. We were on top of a mountain in Sharon, Vermont, nowhere. You know, one of the locals may have hit a pole. One of the moose maybe got a little sort of frisky with the power lines. I don't know, but it went out. But it was out, you know. And we were stood around for about two or 3 days, and they said, "Well, we don't know what's wrong, and this is not coming back on." But we got about halfway through the song to where the breakdown goes, where the drums and bass go, and it stopped. So we went out, went back down to Long Island. We went out and toured, I think, for about a month or 6 weeks. We did a bunch of dates. They got the studio up and running again. We went back, and it was just myself and Nick. Nick was also producing and engineering everything. So I set my drums up, which hopefully sounded the same as the previous drums, which they did. And Nick said, "Well, just play along with the track and we'll do it." So I started playing, and Nick said, "That sounds good." Everything was right. The control room was at the top, was like about at least a story above us and a big window looking down. Nick started the machine, came running down the stairs, picked up his bass, and I'm playing along with it. Nick starts playing, and that's how we ended it. And then Rod and Dave came in and put their guitars and vocals on.
Yeah.
It was, but you know, hey, I'm a musician. I can do stuff. I can play to a click track. Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
So it was very much like a do-it-yourself type of recording session for you.
Yeah. Well, Foghat always maintained control about what songs we did, how we did it. We always had a producer who was basically like a fifth. You would join the band, and you have a fifth member of the band.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know, we wrote the songs, we did the songs how we wanted to do them. You know, sometimes you rise and fall by who and what you are. But that's how it was. Still is that way. But it was always a band thing. It was the rehearsals were always about arranging the band. You know, Rod Price was a lead guitar player. Lonesome Dave wrote the majority of the lyrics, but the arrangements always came from the band. And a lot of the songs, like Slow Ride, just came from jamming. We were jamming in a basement, and Dave turned around and said, "I've got some lyrics that'll fit that." And there you are.
Nice. That's always the best, when you sit down and you're just jamming and then like a song comes out of it. Like that's, I've seen it happen once or twice, and it's
Well, like our first hit, "I Just Want to Make Love to You," which is written by Willie Dixon, recorded by Muddy Waters, of course. And when we were in Savoy Brown, and myself and Dave would be the sound check early, we we would jam to that, and eventually Dave decided to sing "I Just Want to Make Love to You," which was fortunate because that was the first hit that we ever had on my first album. So I miss Dave. It's to your lumps. Love you, brother.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that we really like to do on Live and Amplified. We're going to switch gears a little bit here. Is and I think this will be really interesting coming from you and getting your kind of perspective on things. We like to pass as much knowledge as we can on to younger musicians, like people that are getting ready to just start or getting ready to play or maybe take that next step. And so we want to try and help them and pass on as much knowledge as we can. Um, so I want to take the next few minutes here and kind of run in that direction. What advice would you have for a young musician that's looking to start playing professionally?
Don't do it. Get a real job. Work in a bank. That's where they keep the money.
Yeah.
No, you know, I know, I personally probably know hundreds of musicians that aren't professional musicians. They have to have a day job to support their passion.
Mm-hmm.
You become a musician and you play music because you have a passion for music and because you love music. Don't ever give up. You do it because you love to play. You know, I've had people say to me, "Well, you ever thinking of retiring, Rog?" And I said, "Why would I want to do anything stupid like that?" And drums in a rock and roll band. Hold on. People would give an appendage maybe for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You play music because you love to, and I think I don't know about the current sort of situation with music or how music is, how you actually get a gig, how you get a record contract. I mean, other than what goes on the TV, which is not really my cup of tea, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you go about it. I mean, I grew up in a time when, you know, when I was 17 years old and playing in a band, we'd rent a union hall or the upstairs of a local pub and, you know, put it together.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I learned to play, you know, get up and, you know, play at parties and like, you know, anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah.
But today it's a lot harder for musicians to play somewhere. Certainly if you've got a band,
Yeah.
a lot of people will play the like backing tracks, you know, you put a track down. The world has changed. There again, I think it should. I think if music stayed the same, it would be boring. And I think every generation should have their what's the word, soundtrack. They should have their soundtrack. You know, there's songs and there's music that will stay with you forever.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like listening to Buddy Holly when I was like 10 years old in the car with mum and dad. It's like that stays with you. It's part of your DNA that goes in. And so I think that's what musicians, I think they strive for. I'd like to sort of, you want to move people. You want them to say, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's one of the joys of being able to play live. And I'm one of the fortunate few, I think, as far as that goes, because, you know, when Foghat plays a rock and roll band, we do a blues song just to give the drummer a break. but it's like, you know, it's all about the music. Look at the Stones. And I saw them about 3 or 4 years ago. They played in New York City somewhere, and they were fantastic. I mean, they played great. I used to go and see them when they first started in London. I used to see them at Island, the Marquee, the Railway Club, and they were great back then. So yeah, I'm a Stones fan. I'm a Stoner dude.
For me, I'm always entertained by watching AC/DC still play.
What a
Like,
great band.
yeah. Like the last time I saw them play, I was living in Chicago. I think they came to someplace in Chicago in like 2007. And so that's even still 13 years ago. And I just remember watching them and it's like, dang, Angus can still move. Like nobody's business.
And great guitar player. I mean, he's up there with the best, you know, like Keith Richards, like probably one of the greatest like rhythm guitar players out there. Learns it all from Chuck, but there again, he admits that and like says those things. But Angus, yeah, Angus is great guitar player, great sound as well.
Yeah.
Records sound great.
Yeah.
I sometimes had a problem with their singers, like because they grate after a few moments, but I think that's part of their beauty, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So are you guys currently working on any new music, or are you just kind of touring and doing that right now?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm on vacation at the moment,
Yeah.
so I'm enjoying every minute of it. But I get in my hour or 2 hours every day on the pads and on my drums if I need to. I've also done a couple of things with a few other musicians. I don't want to talk about that. That it's
Yeah.
there. I mean, but that was also long distance. They'd send me a tape and a click track, and I'd play drums to it, which was interesting.
Hmm.
That's another arrow in my quiver. But we have we did a live recording on our last show last year at Daryl's house, upstate New York.
Hmm.
Filmed it and recorded it, and it sounded really good. Brian sent me Brian Bassett, our lead and side guitar player, who mixes everything for us. He sent me the stuff, and it sounds really good. Everybody was playing well. We were a little tired.
Yeah.
We did 3 days in a row, and everybody got maybe 2 or 3 hours sleep. But other than that, hey, we're a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
Hey, hey.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect all the time.
Yeah, but you know what? Everybody knows how to play, and sometimes it's okay if you're a little tired. You relax and you just chill and like you just, you know, head, hands,
Yeah.
and that's live at Daryl's house. That's going to be coming out. We're always working on various projects. We've got a few other things going on at the moment. But really, if we go out, like I said, August 1st, it will just be a question of like, you know, learning to play again. We'll have a week's rehearsal down in Florida at the studio and make sure everybody is up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But so you're the only original member of the band that's still actively playing in the band, correct?
Yeah, but this band's been together over 20 years. So,
Okay. Or the current lineup has been together?
yeah,
So,
apart from the bass player, Rodney, who joined us 3 or 4 years ago, our longtime bass player, Craig McGregor, died. He had cancer.
mhm.
And he was our bass player for the longest time. And he was my brother by a different brother. That was a rough one. But he was always we had, initially when he got sick, he had lung cancer. We had 4 different bass players because as far as I was concerned, he was the bass player in this band until he told me he wasn't going to be playing anymore. And he would come out and play choice gigs. I remember one, we had a show with Deep Purple
Mhm.
in San Diego. And he called me out and said, Roger, I want to do that show. I said, you sure? I said, yeah, it's 50 minutes. And I can do that. I said, you got it. So, but Rodney O'Quinn is our longtime bass player. He was with Pat Travers before us. And I called Pat up one day and I said, can Rodney come and join us? And he said, take him, please. And, Rodney is the youngest one. And so, you know, he can help us out with the driving when we need to. He can lift things up and not going to sort of worry about his sciatica.
Yeah, absolutely. So the current lineups has pretty much been together since you guys got back together in about 93, was it, if I remember correctly?
About 20 years.
Yeah.
Brian Bassett has been with us since, since, 20 years, yeah.
Okay, cool. And one kind of rabbit hole that I want to go down to, I always find it kind of interesting, is obviously from the 70s until now, there's been a huge shift in the musical industry. Like it started like from vinyl to tape to CD and just like how people consume music. Um, what's from your perspective, how what's the biggest difference slash do you find certain things easier now than you did back when you first started? And do you find things harder now, or do you find certain things harder now than you did when you first started? Does that question make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, I was really happy with CDs. Some people go on about how better vinyl is, and it is fun to put vinyl on and hear those crackles and scrapes,
Yeah.
and there is a certain warmth that comes off of vinyl. But I was really happy with CDs. I loved the way they sounded. You could play them in the car, cart them anywhere, and of course, people would often scratch them, and they would still play. I
Mm-hmm.
was impressed with that.
Yeah.
But now everybody seems to be listening to everything through buds, though they do have really good headphone sets now, which I
Yeah.
think it. But I miss, and it is okay with like with the band and stuff. But when I was younger and I would learning and listening to music, I would I would sit down and listen to records with the guys in the band, when I was 17, 18 years old, and even before that. We would sit around, crank the JBLs up and like, did you hear that? Put it back.
Mm.
And it was like a social thing, like sitting there with three or four guys or whoever's in the room listening to music. Or if you're at a party,
Mm-hmm.
then somebody kept, putting the same song over and over again. All right, it's enough of that. but
Yeah.
but it was a social thing. Whereas now, other than I think, concerts, people listen to music like on their own. There's not that joy, that unison.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Like when I would imagine when you're in a gospel church and you have everybody sort of singing, it's like it's magic. That's the best kind of magic, when everybody is singing and it's like from the heart and from with joy.
Yep.
And listening to music is also like that when you sit down with a bunch of people, other than like just being on your own. But having said that, one of my favorite things is I sit in the car, put the top down, crank up the radio. I've got a really good sound system in my car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I go for a drive.
Yeah.
And it's I put it on about 9.
Yeah.
I am
You know,
hearing.
yeah. That's one of the many reasons why I started doing live and amplified. Was the first reason was to help independent musicians kind of get them some exposure, but I just like being in the car driving, listening to music. And before live and amplified, it was usually me by myself. But now, anytime we go on the road, it's 3 or 4 of us going. So we'll go on Spotify or the radio or whatever, and just find a playlist that somebody curated that just happens to pop up, and listen. Like just figure out what we want to listen to and just let it go. And it's very communal. It's very
Right.
yeah.
The only person I do it like communally with now when we're in the car is if Linda and I are driving somewhere. Sometimes if I've got a chance to drive to a gig, like if it's like under 300 miles, Linda and I sort of get all the CDs ready and like this one, and we're quite eclectic. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
That is the best way to listen to it.
Yeah. One of the things that I found a lot of enjoyment is a few years back when vinyl started to really make its resurgence. For Christmas one year, my mom got me one of those little Victrola vinyl record player, like something that you can get at the like at a store. Not like a super.
I've got one.
Yeah. And so she had bought me that, and I was like, okay, because I at that time I had like 1 or 2 vinyls that I just kind of had through going to like independent shows, like people that just happened to have their music on vinyl and whatnot. And I was on eBay one day, and I found that there's a lot of places that were trying to offload all their 45s, and so you could buy a lot of 40 or 25 or 25 45s for like $15, but the kicker was you just didn't know what you were going to get. So it was just like they gave you 25 EP,
Yeah.
EPs there, and you get what you get. And so I would do
Sounds
that.
dangerous.
Yeah, it was, but you know what? I got some really good stuff. Like I got a demo of Bill Withers' "Ain't No Sunshine." Just like all this really good music. And I mean, a lot of it was crap for the most part. It was a lot of, people that never made it, or they were, just, never came of anything. But I got to hear their music, and I mean, so
Yeah.
it, it's,
Here's another one. Just to backtrack a little bit, you asked me earlier about, up and coming musicians. A quick story. When we first started as Foghat,
mhm.
uh, our manager at the time was a good friend of mine. He was American, but he'd never managed anybody and never really done anything. He was just a friend of mine. And when I used to come over to the States when I was in Savoy Brown, I'd go fishing and stay at his parents' house out here on Long Island. But when he heard that we weren't in the band anymore, he called me up and said, we went to see Savoy Brown, and he said, nobody's there. And I said, no, we left the band. He said, oh. So he borrowed some money from his dad and came over to England, and we started working on stuff, and the band had already started rehearsing, and I found a place for us to rehearse, and a number of places to rehearse, because after we started playing, we usually got kicked out because it was too loud. That's another story. So once we made our first demo, we actually recorded it at Abbey Road. I heard it recently and it wasn't very good. But every single record company in the world, majors and minors, turned us down. So all you up and coming musicians, listen to this. Everybody turned us down. And, no, we were James Taylor and Carole King. There's nothing wrong with Carole King. I love Carole King.
Yeah.
But that's setting the bar rather high for us. Nobody was interested in us. And Albert Grossman, who managed Bob Dylan, the band, Peter, Paul and Mary, came over to England with the band and Todd Rundgren in tow. And he crossed paths with our manager at the time, Tony. And Tony talked him into coming to see us. So we rented this club in Northwest London one afternoon. Nobody's in there. We just rented the club, stank a bit stale beer and etc. So Albert Grossman comes down. Now, I knew who Albert Grossman was. I mean, this man was a giant in the music field. Mm. And so we set up in this sweaty little club and with our big amplifiers. I think they were high watts then. And Albert was about no more than like 12, maybe 20 feet away from us, sitting in a chair. And we started playing and he visibly went, oh. I think we played about 6 songs for him. And he came up to me and he said, he was real character. And he came up and he used to do this with his fingers like this. He said, so can we get some tea and biscuits somewhere? And I said, and I was familiar with the area because it was near my favorite football club. There's only one club in London. And I said, yeah, there's a hotel across the road. We can get tea and biscuits there. So we left our roadie, his name was Biscuit, I think, to pack stuff up. And we went across the road and we sat there and we ordered tea and biscuits. And we sat there and I'm sitting there like the band, Tony, our manager, Tony Otida, and Albert Grossman around this table just waiting. And Albert's sitting there going, so the tea and biscuits arrived, so we have a tea and biscuits. And then Albert looks around at us and he says, well, hey, let's do it. I still get chills to this day, because when Albert Grossman says, well, let's do it, it's done. And about 2 weeks later, I got a $10,000 check sent to my bank, and I booked time at Rockfield Studios, and that's how we started. But the story is we were turned down by everybody, and we made millions and millions and millions of dollars for Bearsville Records and Albert Grossman. And I regularly thank Albert Grossman, a wonderful man, a giant in the music business. And other people had some issues with him. I didn't. I loved the man. I would hang out with him from time to time. He loved to eat as well, which I love to do. And he lent me his fly rods a couple of times. That's another story too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really awesome story. It's and it's a really good message because it's you know, no matter how many times you got knocked down, you just kept getting up and chugging along and chugging along.
That's what you do. I mean, what do you want to do? You want to play music? I was going to play anyway, and the same with everybody else in the band. We wanted to play. Yeah, and I think that's what Albert saw and heard in us. You know, we had a passion, and we were very passionate about our playing, and I think probably we had a few ideas up our sleeve that maybe Albert saw. But keep trying, don't give up.
Yeah, absolutely. As we kind of start working towards the end of this, because we usually like to keep this like right around an hour is where we
Oh no.
Yeah.
Tom, you're gonna leave me hanging?
It's it's been an absolute amazing conversation. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I jumped on here about 15 minutes early, and I was just like, man, I don't know what to expect. Like we've interviewed a couple of bigger names. We got to interview like the Wailers and the Bellamy Brothers. Just a couple, just to kind of name a few. And it's like those were different because they were in person, and so I got a feel for what they were doing. And now with everything with the pandemic going on, it's like, okay, we had to move everything over to Zoom, do everything thousands of miles away.
This is cool, right?
Yeah, it definitely is, and thankfully it's worked out really well for us. So
good, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. So one more question I want to ask to kind of pass more value on. For musicians that are getting ready to step into the studio for the first time, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Be rehearsed. Okay. Be thoroughly rehearsed. Know exactly what you're doing. Have somebody bright, have it on their computer, the arrangement and everything else, because you're always going to get somebody who'll go, why don't we try this? No, that's what rehearsals are for. Yeah. When you go in the studio time is precious and probably costs, unless of course somebody's just giving you $10,000 and you can spend a week there. The other thing is studios these days are a lot less expensive. The equipment. I remember like the studio we had here in Port Jefferson, we had a Neve board, what was it, $1.5 million. I mean, that's scary stuff. You can get a board now for like, $2 or $3 grand or less.
Oh yeah.
The important thing is microphones and having somebody who knows what they're doing. We have really good microphones. We also have Brian Bassett, our lead and slide guitar player, and also a resident genius who's been recording bands in the studio for, I don't know, 50 years or more. So he's, we have talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the really interesting thing right now, because you'd kind of leaned into this a little bit about how easily accessible production equipment is right now, because like the stuff that we use on our audio isn't super expensive equipment. I think our audio board is a $600 Zoom R24. Like, it's perfect for what we need it for, but it's not super expensive. It's not thousands of dollars of equipment. So it's like that, and then a couple of $100 mics, and boom, we're in business.
Microphones are the important thing, other than like having somebody who knows how to use them, and also having a room. If you're recording you know, a band, you know, like a 4-piece band, that requires a little bit more than mum and dad's basement.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you just say to the neighbors, "Can you leave for a while?" No, yeah, it's got a lot easier to actually record. Our studio down in Florida, it's the living room. The studio is Brian's behind the glass window in the dining area,
Mm-hmm.
and we make records there.
Yeah.
And we rehearse there, and it's like no red light. We can do what we want. We're very fortunate actually, but we made what 3 albums there, 4 albums there, and we rehearse there before we ever go out on tour. So we're fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and that's one of the really interesting things about what we do is because we also do live recordings of bands because we're really
Yeah,
myself and my team, we're really big on live recordings because there's just some authenticity about it, and you know we just really enjoy it, and so we get ourselves into some really interesting situations where like within our first 6 months of working together, we were recording a 5-piece heavy metal band in a garage.
good luck.
And actually, it's probably one of our more sound, like, you can't tell we recorded it in a garage. Like, just by listening to it. Like, obviously, once you see the video, it's like, oh, they're in a garage. But, like, listening to it, you can't tell they're playing in a garage.
You know, it's a room's a room. Like drums always sound better in wooden rooms or
Yeah.
concrete and hard stuff. Guitars, no. It's that's the magic of making music. Really, you know. I mean, if you've got a really great recording, you go back and you go, "Whoa, this is a pleasant surprise."
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and the one thing that I really like about live recordings is sometimes you just catch something that naturally just happens that
Cool
maybe
magic.
isn't yeah, or maybe that isn't originally a part of the song, but they missed their cue to go into a solo, you know, and it just stuff that naturally happens, you know.
Magic. That's what music is. It's
Yeah,
magic.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, but what's mo- obviously you guys have been playing for a really long time, and there's very little you haven't done. What other than your love for music, what kind of keeps you out on the road playing? What keeps you going at this point in your career?
Well, well, Noisy Sod, that's the name of the company. I mean, we employ 12 people.
Okay.
there's that to consider.
Yeah.
Maybe even 13 sometimes or 14. But, you know, that's something. And that was one of the worrying things about the recent situation.
Yeah.
Linda, our manager, has been racking her brains trying to make sure that everybody's okay. One of the reasons we play is because it's a business, but
Yeah.
you know, we have to play. Like I said, we do about 60, 70 shows a year is about right. About 100 shows a year is like just sort of on the edge of, you know, because then you need some time off.
Mm-hmm.
Really old. But no, it's kind of this well-oiled machine, and everybody's cool. We have a great crew.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the band, they're all great players. We're friends.
Yeah.
And, you know, after 3 or 4 days, you do a 3 or 4 day run, you're not getting any sleep because good 90% of our shows, we fly everywhere.
Yeah.
If we can drive up to about 300 miles is usually it. We'll either rent a Sprinter or a couple of station wagons, rather minivans. We also use a Sprinter from time to time. With my brother-in-law's got a limo business, and he's a good driver. He also works as a second drum tech. It's you know, this is what we do. This is my job. This is my job. I have a job. Hey, I have a job. Hey, Mom, I've got a job.
Is there a place that you haven't had a chance to play yet that you'd really like to? Like whether it be a country, you know.
Yeah, we haven't played in England since 1973, 74, and we had a booking this summer playing a festival in southwest England,
Okay.
in Maidstone in Kent, and of course it's going to be cancelled now. So I'm upset about that. But last year um, we played Germany and Belgium, which was really cool because the band has England hasn't Foghat hasn't played in Europe or England since 73, 74. So I was really looking forward to that. Now that's got sort of canned, which I'm a bit disappointed about that. But I intend to sort of be around for a number of more years. So maybe
Yeah.
we'll get a chance to do it next year.
Yeah.
But having said that, you know, we play Canada, we go down to Mexico, do festivals down there. But 90 odd % of the dates are all here in the US, which is just fine with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And are most of the dates that you play, or how? What would you say the amount of dates you play are festivals versus like single shows with you guys?
Yeah, we do all the major festivals, casinos, theaters. That's about it. We play in a cage. There's a couple of clubs we play. There's one just outside of Chicago that we play that we really like because we love the promoter and we'll just go and do anything for him anyway.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of places like that. But we have a really good rapport with you know, all the promoters and the booking agents. So we have a great agency who we've been with for numerous years, Paradise Artists. So yeah, it's everything works really well. The truth is, she's not here. The manager, she's really good.
Yeah. And I think that's key is having a good manager and somebody that knows what they're doing, their ins and outs, and knows what's best for the band and what the band wants, you know.
And also, you know, we talk about it. I mean, anytime there's an issue with the band, if whatever it is, like, you know, and you know, having four very strong personalities in the band, and they are.
Yeah.
You know, we have to sometimes sit down and talk. Well, let's get this sorted out, mate. You know, so it doesn't sort of sit there and fester. And that's something I've learned from playing.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Don't sit there and like leave it alone if there's a problem. Talk about it. Work it out. If it's worth working out, you can do that. But often, like when we were younger, we were probably too busy and too tired to like do anything about it. You would, you know, Foghat worked every day of the week since we've been playing. And if we weren't working, we were traveling.
Yeah.
If we weren't working, we were playing in the studio. But we do 200 and whatever days a year, and then we had no time off. That's why I'm saying how wonderful this April,
this time is right now. Yeah.
July. Make the most of it, because from here on out, coronavirus withstanding, I'm gonna start playing again. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna have my chops ready. Hey, I still got my chops, you know.
Yeah.
I got hands, I got feet.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that you're practicing every day really helps maintain your chops.
Yeah, you have. Well, you have to. It's what you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
One thing I need to mention. You know, you talked to Felix Cavalieri.
No, I haven't.
You never talked to Felix Cavalieri. He wrote the title track of the album.
Okay.
Rock and Roll Outlaw. He wrote that. Felix Cavalieri wrote that. And after he finished singing it, we were at Todd Rundgren's studio in New York at the time. Was it 1973, 74, somewhere around there?
Yeah.
And he played it for us. He had a Hammond organ and he played it for us. And after he finished singing the lyrics, he said, I have to wash my mouth out with soap and water. Because I'm a rock and roll outlaw, city love, fun.
That's funny. No, I'll have to see if I can reach out to him and see if I can get him on.
Okay. Yeah, Felix is a great musician, wonderful human being too.
Yeah. Actually, one thing that I want to have you kind of press because it never gets pressed enough, is the importance of making sure you don't burn your bridges in the industry. And what have you kind of done to make sure you're, even if you have like a split up with a, whether it's a distributor or a manager or a something, how have you kind of been able to maintain relationships in the industry throughout all these years?
Um, I personally have worked real hard at it. I'm not the sort. I can't lose my cool, lose my temper, because I've done it once or twice. It's not a pretty sight,
Yeah.
and I've learned how to. There's this saying about walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, and you've got their shoes. But the truth is, you just don't know how the other people are feeling, and that's why there's the one thing I've learned, that we talk about it. If there's an issue, we talk about it. No, I haven't burnt too many bridges. There's a couple that I really, there's a couple of people out there that I don't really give a shit about whatever happens to them, mainly because I don't like them, I don't respect them, and I find them offensive.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably only about two. Everybody else, I've always tried to maintain a decent working relationship, a decent relationship. Hey, my first two wives talk to me.
Yeah. Hey.
We go to parties together, we go out together. It's like, I loved them once. No, I've made a point, I think, over the years of trying to maintain relationships with promoters, with other musicians. It's important, unless somebody hurts me, my own, and others, I'll leave them alone. And if it's something more than that, then I've also met some really terrific people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a quick one here. Derek Taylor, who was the publicist for the Beatles. And once we got our record deal with Bearsville Records, thanks to Albert Grossman, he was working at Warner Brothers at the time. And like I said, this is in England,
Mm-hmm.
1971, 72. And we couldn't get any dates at all in England because our previous manager, Harry Simmons, stopped us from working, just blacklisted us. And, we were just a new band. We couldn't do anything about it. But Derek Taylor took a liking to the band. And also we had a record deal now with Bearsville and Warner Brothers as the parent company. Mm. And he said, I think I can help you out here and get some dates. And he did, in fact, get us some dates there. A couple of club dates, a few other dates, a going away party for the British ambassador to Japan. That's another story. That's going in the got us a tour with Captain Beefheart for 3 weeks when the album was first released in England, and that was great. What a lot of fun that was. And after that, there wasn't much going on, and that was when we got our call from our manager and said that our first album had got in the charts, and I Just Want to Make Love to You was like a top 40 single. So off we went.
Have you guys, have you or you and the band ever thought about putting like a book together or something, like a tour book?
Well, we're working on a book at the moment.
Okay.
And I have to be honest with you, I'm kind of lazy, but I've got a few tools that I work with on the phone and the way I record it. I'm reading other writers' books. I've read Keith Richards' book. Linda's read a couple of other books by other people. I'm trying to get an idea, but I think you have to talk about it, like I'm talking to you, like telling the story.
Yep.
Trouble is, there's holes in my story that I can't remember.
Yep.
So I'm going to have to call people up and say, "You remember what we did on this date? Oh, you're no longer with us? Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
It's a bit of a problem because some of my best friends have passed on.
Yeah.
But actually, we're working on a book as we speak, and And it's interesting.
Yeah. The one thing, because the one thing that I found that really helps us is one of our goals is we want to do like a DIY touring book, like just like a touring Bible or something for DIY musicians.
Yeah.
Um, and the one thing that I found in the last like 6 months that have really helped us is breaking it up into smaller writing, not assignments, but writing pieces. So like instead of, oh hey, look, we got to knock out 30 pages, it's, oh hey, you want to write specifically about how to turn these three mics into recording your entire 7-piece drum kit or 12-piece drum kit or whatever. Okay, great, just write about that, and however long it is how long it is, you know. And so one thing that I found success with is just breaking down the writing aspect of it, if that helps you at all.
Um, yeah, writing is fun. I mean, I have a couple of different partners I write with. You know, like Brian, a guy called Scott Holt, who I have another band with called Earl and the Agitators. He's a fantastic singer and lead guitar player. He played with Buddy Guy for 10 years. He was in Buddy Guy's band, second guitar player. And I write a lot with Scott. Scott and I, in fact, what happened was our last studio album, Under the Influence, we were recording and we were short about 3 or 4 songs. And I've been friends with Scott for some time. And I called him up and said, look, you want to come down to the studio and maybe see if we can put some things together? So myself, Brian Bassett, and Scott Holt were in the studio. Now, instead of writing 3 or 4 songs, we wrote 17.
Oh,
Typical fucking musicians.
yeah. But at least you had some options. So, like, when you sat down to actually come together for EP, LP, whatever you were going for at the time, you know, it's okay, we've got 17 songs, and we know that we have room to cut certain songs that maybe just aren't right or don't fit the feel or whatever, you know.
No, we kept them all. We just
Oh,
started another band. Typical musicians. And so, of course, I inform our manager that you know, we've got a new band, and Brian Bassett was. We were in a studio in Nashville doing some recording, and we'd finished recording for the day, and we opened some wine, we were listening to songs. Brian Bassett stood up on the board after his second bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon and declared the Agitators. So all of a sudden our manager has another band to deal with. We do have the extra 3 or 4 songs we wanted for the album, Under the Influence, but now we've got all these songs left over. What are we going to do with them? We start a band.
yeah. That's awesome.
My
Yeah,
poor wife, she has headaches all the time from me.
absolutely.
She
But
indulges me though.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we could sit here all night just going back and forth, you know, and what have you. But as far as you personally, one thing that we like to do to kind of wrap everything up nicely is there's this vague question that we like to ask, kind of gives you room to answer it how you feel would sufficely answer it. But why music?
Why not? I mean, you know, without music, life would be a fucking mistake.
Yeah, that's actually that's a really good answer. You know, it's some people just find, like, what does music do for you personally that kind of it brings, what is it about music for you that
You know, I played drums in a great rock and roll band. I mean, I right from when I was a kid, I would tap on the furniture, I would break the lampshades, I would break the glasses. My mother used to, both my parents came from the East End of London, rather, Cockneys. And so my mum would say, the noisy little sod, all he ever does is tap, tap, bang, bang. He ruins all my good china. It's a nice little boy, though. I love playing. I love listening to music. I love playing music. my hearing is not quite as acute as it used to be. He's a deaf bastard. No, but it's there's a few things that have didn't quite work out, but it wasn't the music's fault. It was me. But no, music is. I'm a very fortunate human being. I'm very fortunate with the friends I have, the friends I've made, a lot of the friends I've lost, the music I've made over the years and still going to make. It's a joyful thing. It is. It's like, and the thing is, I know how fortunate and how good, lucky I am. I think that's the important thing, recognizing your good fortune. There again, luck is something that maybe comes from somewhere out there. I think good fortune is something you can help create.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I want to thank you so much for giving me your time. It's been a great honor. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while. And with the pandemic, after my dad kind of got cleared with his medical issues, and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, you know what? Let me just reach out and see if Linda remembers me. And fortunately, she did. And it's like, okay, cool. And we were able to make it happen. And I'm really glad. So I really appreciate you putting on a really great podcast, really great interview. It was entertaining. You told really great stories. And thank you so much for your time. Like, I can never say that enough, And
Thank you, Tom. And actually, I've enjoyed it. And it is, I mean, I have a great manager. She gives these things. It says, you're doing this. And I said, well, who is he? And then she explains to me and gives me some of the details. I go, oh, yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where we try and walk that fine line of, I really enjoy the podcasts where I don't have much of a relationship with the musician beforehand, because then it's like recording that first interaction for the very first time. So that's always very special. But I also really like the interviews that we do where it's a band where I've known them for 15 years and I was there when they first started, So we walk that fine line. And right now it's been a lot of new bands, first experiences, and this was right up there. This is an amazing podcast. I really appreciate your time and effort. And I'm watching out of your back window. I'm seeing like lightning striking.
Yeah, no, there's a storm. There's a storm going on.
Okay.
It's raging.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to go out in the boat this evening because we're on the water here and the tide's in now. I was going to go fishing for some striped bass or something, but I don't think so.
No, not right now. Not right now. We've got the hurricane coming our way. Or not hurricane, tropical storm. There's a tropical storm sitting off in the Gulf right now that's probably going to head our way here. I think they said Sunday, Monday, somewhere around there. So
my drum tech and our percussionist, Mark Petricelli, lives down in Houston. So maybe I should give him a call, make sure he's okay.
Yeah. Obviously it's still a little early, so it's like could switch any given way. But right now it's looking like it could come right towards right between, I think the last I saw it was like coming right between Houston and like New Orleans in that area.
Yeah, that area tends to get hammered a lot.
Yeah. But I happened to be in Tallahassee when Michael hit, and that was my first experience like actually dealing with a hurricane, and that was scary. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, we live right on the water here, so, and it's a houseboat. It was built in 1927, and it's on concrete footings. But it's you get a hurricane coming through here. About 5 years ago, we had a tornado come literally this side of the house, or the boat, I should say, ripped down a whole bunch of trees down our road, and like all the grass was flattened. Didn't touch us. I mean, the boat shook.
Yeah.
It didn't touch us. It was like,
wow.
If you had anything to do with it, thank you. If you didn't, thank you anyway.
Yeah. That's just weather's crazy. Like just thinking about 1 inch in either direction, and it would have been a completely different experience for you. You know,
Oh well,
yeah,
life is life is life is for living.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm reminded of the quote from Any Given Sunday: 1 inch in either direction, your life could change in the most drastic way. You know,
Yeah, I've thought about that from time to time. And decisions that you make 1 inch either way.
yeah, absolutely. But once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You know, before we wrap this up, where can people find you online once your shows start ramping back up in August and stuff? Where can people get all that information?
Foghat.com, all things Foghat, Foghat Cellars is where you can get the wine from. We have you can get all our t-shirts and stuff, and records and CDs and all that other stuff. But I think we're going to probably start. We're looking to start on August 1st,
Okay.
and the dates will be up on our website, which is foghat.com.
Awesome, awesome.
Okay.
And then for your wine company, is that primarily just sold online, or do you actually go into certain stores, or is it sold in stores
Yeah,
as well?
it's sold in certain stores. We can ship to we can ship to pretty much every state.
Except for Texas.
Yeah. What is that about?
Because they're somebody explained it to me, and I had a really good response to it. It's something about certain counties in Texas, it's illegal to deliver alcohol.
Right. It's a tobacco, firearms, tobacco, and liquor.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's and some of these rules or laws, I should say, go back to Prohibition days. So
yeah,
there are some pretty strange rules. We have a wine company out here on Long Island, and we also have a distribution in California. Yeah, you have to get it right. You have to do it by the book, and you have to.
mhm,
Uh, Actually, I've drunk an awful lot of the white wine.
yeah,
Never mind.
yeah.
uh,
No,
uh,
but
we're not getting rich on selling wine, but the
yeah,
wines are really good, and it's interesting. Like I said earlier, I enjoy sort of going out picking the grapes and working with it.
yeah, absolutely. So I think with Father's Day coming up, I'm going to have to send my father a little fog hat gift.
Well, then, I'll talk to Linda about that. Let me
Oh,
do that.
okay,
Just get an address where we can send it to him. All right.
okay, awesome. That would be really
I would
cool.
love to.
Yeah,
I would love to do
'cause
that.
he's the wine drinker of the family, and you
What does
know,
he drink? Reds, whites, or?
oh, he drinks whites. At least last I heard, he was drinking whites.
All right. I know what to do.
Okay, awesome. I will talk with Linda, and we will get that set up. That's really cool of you. I really appreciate
No
that.
problem. No problem. I mean, that's one of the beauties of wine. That we have this, and we get them sent to our. Back in like the 70s, it was something else that you used to have to give to people, to get a gig or get this or get that. But now we send wine to promoters, and we send wine to the radio stations. It's so wine is a pleasant gift. It's like
Yeah, yeah, it
it
really
works.
is. And
Yeah.
it's with with the online retail sector really starting to boom. Wine is really starting to pick up steam right now.
I
Like,
know. It's like well, because nobody's here. It's just myself and Linda, and our assistant comes in 3 days a week, and it's always to bottle up, packages of wine. No, it has. It's like come to life.
mhm.
So yeah, I hope they don't I hope they don't sell it all, honey.
Don't sell all the wine. That's funny. But once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you guys later.
Tom, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yep.